Tucker, Squintess, Megan, Ben. The new media has been fractured over the last week in a way it had not been before Charlie was taken out of the equation in a horrible, horrific way. Now, chaos has broken out in the conservative ranks. Who will win? Who will lose? Who should be platformed? Who gets the boot? And folks, what is this all about? Well, we've got answers, and we've got stats for you. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome back. It's another conversation of excellence on the way, and joining us today is Mark Mitchell from Rasmussen Reports. Mark, how are you?
Doing really great. Living in the trenches of the information war at the moment. Eating rations and shoveling mud, and you know what I mean? Like sharing the foxhole with a lot of other people and looking around saying, what the hell is happening?
Well, there's nobody better than you to tell us what's happening, so I hope that you've got some answers for us, because what we're watching is the, as I've called it, the balkanization of the new media, the conservative media that kind of rose up and was part of this movement that allowed Trump to come back into power, you might say, that defeated the legacy media types, sent them towards extinction. It was a meteor kind of event. And, you know, I don't know who all we want to include in this, if it's Joe Rogan, if it's Tucker, Megan, Candace, it's a lot of things. It's Daily Wire. It's all of these entities that essentially were outside of the mainstream network system, the big corporations. And after the assassination of Charlie Kirk, everything has shattered in a way that I was not anticipating. Let me show this to you, Mark, and then we'll dive into it. Here's what we've got from Matt Walsh. This is a great way to leapfrog into what we need to do. He says, while conservatives rip each other to shreds, he says an Islamic communist is about to take over the biggest and most important city in our country, and a far-left Somali con artist is about to take over one of the largest cities in the American heartland. But yeah, let's stay focused on the gossip and drama. It's not like our country is in the middle of a hostile foreign invasion as we speak. So this is Matt's position. He's clearly, directly in the middle of the new media. He's in the Daily Wire, but some would say he's not of the Daily Wire, if you get my drift. Mark, we're watching, and we'll go to Megan Kelly in just a second and see what she has to say about all this. But the new media has dominated the legacy media, and now this rift after the passing of Charlie Kirk, we've got Candace Owens doing what she's doing. You've got Tucker Carlson hosting Nick Fuentes. You've got people pushing back strongly against that. And what is your take on right now how this is shaking out? Like, who is picking up steam in the media based off this? Who's losing steam in the media based off this?
I think we're in a really, really weird situation that is going to redefine all of politics and probably our social fabric. We've had the internet for a really long time, but I don't think we've seen the full promise of it until just very recently. Now, I think mainstream media is dying for a host of factors. One of them is just collapsing trust in institutions and mistrust of the federal government and suspicions that these mainstream media news sources are establishment mouthpieces. I think a lot of people got sick of being lied to. I think, tastes just change over time. I also think the cable cutting and leaning into streaming has also, or if you look at MSNBC and CNN, though, they're completely dead. And also Fox News, I think, is slowly going to start dying, and Newsmax is growing, but I just don't think the future is in linear television. And what people would do is just put on those channels and watch them for hours and hours. And you could almost tell what channel people watched, you know what I mean? And it's like, maybe Hannity's a little bit different than Jesse Waters, but are they that different? Like, at the end of the day, no. And so now people, I think, were seeking authenticity, seeking deeper answers. I think some of it has to do with the fact that people aren't happy with the state of the country right now, and that things have gotten increasingly more existential, and that also people have been gaslighting them more and more. Like, let's not forget that our society was strained to the breaking point with the amount of lies that were shoved down people's throats in COVID. They really melted a lot of people's noggins. I mean, the number of people that were absolutely authoritarian statists because of fear was pretty wild. And it's hard to put things like that back into Pandora's box. So now we have this situation where, okay, all of a sudden we have free Twitter. We have everybody sort of like in a marketplace of ideas. And then you have this complete fragmentation of like influencers now. And so, like, for instance, Mark Dice, I think he's a really smart guy. I think he brings a lot of things to the table. I'll watch his videos every once in a while, but am I a Mark Dice follower? Am I a Candace Owens follower? Is that the only person I consume? Or am I being subjected to a whole deluge of different ideas and frantically trying to put all of them together? And I think that that's where we're at now. And I think it's good. I'm able to influence some people as well. And I try and do it, intellectually, honestly, and give them like logical takes and numbers and back up my assertions. But there's obviously some bad actors in this situation. And because the landscape's changing, there's huge power in trying to like influence this discussion. I think we're seeing it right now. To be honest, I think the left lost Twitter last year, and it's one of the reasons that Trump won the 2024 election. It was almost like Twitter was out there doing cleanup, like narrative cleanup for all of the lies that were being spread by the mainstream media news. But now, and really just in the last week too, I think I've seen more lies in my timeline on Twitter than I've seen in a really long time. And so it's troubling. But if you, in my opinion, and obviously I'm going to say this because I'm a political pollster, I think it all comes back to politics. And there's a lot of power at stake right now. Donald Trump,
yes.
I mean, Steve Bannon's going to run him for president again, maybe. I don't know what's going on there. But it could be anybody. And right now, J.D. Vance is the favorite. And right now, there's really no ascendant heir to the Democrat throne. So it's like a free-for-all. And we're talking about like tens of trillions of dollars grift machine that can also nuke any country on Earth and apply a backstop to like all countries in one. Like it's a big, big treasure chest. And I think people are scrapping in the mud for it right now.
Let's watch what Megyn Kelly has to say and how she tactically deals with some of these controversies, because as you know, the knives are out for people like Tucker Carlson, for Candace Owens, but also for people who don't agree with him at all, for the Ben Shapiros and the Andrew Clavens. And like, we can go through the list of all of these different people out there. And it seems to me that factions are forming, and I don't know where the coalitions will lie in the future, but I do think that it's, we are watching the reformation of not necessarily the Reformation, but the reforming of whatever this movement was that I had not understood how much Charlie Kirk was holding together. Let's watch what Megyn Kelly says, and then I'll come back to you, and let's talk about these different groups and their different interests.
Decision to platform Tucker. Too bad. Too fucking bad. I love him. We're friends. I don't think he's an anti-Semite at all. Don't listen to all of Tucker's shows. I don't listen to all your shows. I don't have that many hours in the
broadcasting 17 hours a day.
Yeah, seriously. So I raise my kids.
Our shows are very anti-Semitic sometimes. I don't know. We have weak moments.
Yeah, that's you too.
But I don't really care. I think Tucker's a very important, valuable voice in the national conversation. I'm thrilled.
Do you think he has a platform? I think Candace is apart from Tucker.
I don't know her. I don't really know her that well. Although I will tell you, we recently had a very nice exchange before all this. And I was just reminded in my own head that Candace is a young mom of like 3 young kids. She's under a lot of pressure. She's got a big show. She's been under attack since she came onto the public airwaves, and she's been under attack constantly. And it's my prerogative if I say to myself, that is not someone I wish to attack. I do not feel that way. I don't want to do it. Yeah. And I felt this way. And now
so let's go to Megyn Kelly now. And what we've got here, this is Social Blade. It shows us how different YouTube channels are performing. And Megyn Kelly has been on an absolute tear. Actually, they've just updated. It was 90 million before we started the video. It's at 89 million right now. But she's doing phenomenally well, 89 million. I think Candace is at something like 50 million views. And I really don't trust the Spotify stuff. And not because I have any kind of disdain for Spotify, but because YouTube is the place to be. Flat out, it's YouTube, then X, and everything else is way down the next list. So Megyn Kelly has a lot of pull here. Mark, she's trying to play it safe and fair and kind and all that. Other groups are not... and she's doing it strategically. Walk us through what the groups are here that are tuned into the new media and how their interests are different.
Okay. I'm just going to open up a can of worms. Well, first off, I think what we saw there was actually, I think we saw courage and Christian grace, because a lot of people are demanding folks go out and cancel Tucker Carlson. And you can look no further than the head of the Heritage Foundation. Tucker Carlson has a longstanding relationship with them, started his career there. And the guy put, in my opinion, a really good 2.5-minute video out there, because everybody after the Nick Fuentes interview was calling for Tucker Carlson to be canceled. And it's like, first off, the Streisand effect is real. Second off, you can't just cancel Tucker Carlson, no matter how much you don't like this guy. And I think they revealed themselves that this wasn't about Nick. And for like stepping back, if Nick is like the thing that blows up your movement, there's probably deeper problems. first off, these people, I don't even think understand the online culture at all. And in my opinion, Nick Fuentes is an edgelord. And what that is that somebody that like probably has real grievances, but then they throw like a mental temper tantrum to get more attention. It's like a check engine light in your car. It's flashing. Okay, well, something's wrong. Why is this guy getting 1 million followers? He must be saying some things that are right. And he is saying some things that are right. It's just like 5% of the stuff he said is like counterproductive and insane. But it's like, okay, well, a lot of people want to put him away because he says ideas in their idea that are in mind that are hate speech or dangerous. I don't believe in hate speech. I think anything that's legal speech is free speech and that we should applaud. But your ideas should be beating his. Like, that's the way Western society has been founded, not only in our founding fathers and the First Amendment that they wrote in the Constitution, but also freaking logos. This idea of like Western thought and Platonic dialectic, where like Plato didn't care what somebody's credentials were or what they said a week ago. He met the argument. And so if you're trying to silence somebody, then people are going to be like, well, where's your argument? And the stuff that Nick Fuentes said on Tucker again was mostly not controversial. I thought he had some great positions. Like, yes, we should brutalize Chicago ICE protesters, make them absolutely 100% fear the federal government, because we shouldn't have uprisings in our country against legal law enforcement agents. So it goes from Nick to Tucker. That's a bigger target. From Tucker now to the new guy at the head of the Heritage Foundation, who is trying to realign the Heritage as the backbone of conservative ideological like think tankery. And he's been trying to make it more relevant and MAGA focused. And all of a sudden they're going for his head. And then the very next day, what you have is Republican legislators going to the Republican Jewish coalition and outing themselves proudly in front of everybody as Christian Zionists, and saying like that they need to deal with people like Tucker. And so automatically this is like, okay, these are not conservative ideals. What the hell are these people doing? And I think it comes back to influence in politics. So sorry, this is a big roundabout answer. But it's true.
Let's define something for me though, because the Christian Zionist label, and maybe the audience will really get something out of this. And I've got right up now, because we did mention Nick Fuentes. I just want people to see, one of the things that's interesting to me about Fuentes is that he seems to not be necessarily part of the quote unquote MAGA movement. He is definitely a new media figure, but he was attempting to, I suppose, dissuade voters in Michigan for going for Trump, which is to say he was attempting to help bring into the world a President Harris. Now, you might agree or disagree with him on that. It's not for me to say whether or not that's right or wrong, but it definitely puts him in a different position than most of those who celebrated Trump coming back into a second term in the new media. Now, the Christian Zionist issue, this is what's interesting also, Mark, is that inside the new media, what seems to be tearing things apart, and this is amazing because Charlie Kirk's passing, there may have been something that was binding together this coalition in a way that I did not understand under Charlie Kirk. And so this is why I did not anticipate seeing the level of balkanization that we've witnessed. But the Christian Zionist term that's going around right now, could you define that for me? Are those Christians who believe that Israel should have or should be a nation or should have a state? Like, what's your take on what that term means necessarily? We sometimes throw the terms around and we don't stop to say, what is that?
So how I think they're using it now is like as an unapologetic ideological purity test, meaning that we have to say that we 100% support Israel or you're a bad person or anti-Semitic. That's, in my opinion, the implied definition that people are using it. Now, there's a lot of history to this that I'm not privy to. I mean, Israel obviously didn't exist before 1948, right? And so this idea of Zionism and pro or anti-Israel, it's been sort of like changing over time. My understanding is a lot of it had to do with the evangelical megachurch pastors in the 60s and 70s that kind of like created this idea that somehow Christians need to be fundamentally joined at the hip with Israel, even though Judaism and Christianity are two like pretty different religions. I mean, there are some things they share, but Christianity shares stuff like the Ten Commandments with like most human cultures.
Well, my understanding, Mark, would be that if you were looking for religions that are similar, it would be hard for me to think of two religions that are, more similar than Christianity and Judaism, right? That's why we talk about Judeo-Christian values. They're essentially, other than the definition of who is the Messiah and who is the Christ and what is what is it that Jesus is necessarily.
Pretty big though, bro. Like that's a pretty big thing.
It is definitely a big thing. But the values that undergird that appear to be almost, they're consistent, right?
Again, not a theologian, but I can tell you that America was founded by Christians on a combination of Western law, Enlightenment philosophy, and Christianity. And Judaism wasn't really there. And so we hear about Judeo-Christian values, and there might be some things that we share for sure, but people also are using that term increasingly as, like, in my opinion, intellectually gatekeeping and purity tests, like, just the way I see it, discussed. And the word itself, as Candace Owens has put a chart up, like, didn't even exist before the founding of Israel. And then let's also acknowledge that, like, well, sons of Abraham, right? There's Ishmael, and there's people that think that they came. I'm just saying. And then after the New Covenant, New Testament, there's New Covenant. A new church was made by Christians. And it was very different from the, Eastern Judaism law and tradition that was formed after that. I don't know all the details, but I'm saying, like, this is a discussion that's happening, and there isn't a lot of intellectual dissent that's allowed by people who are important on Twitter in the marketplace of ideas. And that's concerning. And where I wanted to go is, I think that a lot of this is about influence in politics. Because remember, Trump resoundingly won on November in a very strong domestic policy agenda. People want America fixed. And that really doesn't have much to do with overseas, other than, like, increasing tariffs on the Chinese and stopping the cheating, right? And yet, a lot of the time we've spent talking about foreign policy, peace accords, interfering with the Iranian nuclear program. And apparently what we're finding out behind the scenes is that there have been a lot of calls to do this. And so what I've learned being a political pollster is, yes, it really is a lot about money and influence with the corporations, foreign government, and Israel has a lot of influence. That's not necessarily the truth. Did we freeze?
Momentarily. Take it back up with the last sentence you said, and we'll fix it.
Okay, so it's not anti-Semitic to say that Israel has a lot of influence. And yes, I know Qatar is increasing their influence, but just ask an AI to, like, objectively summarize, and there are a lot of, like, cultural influences that Jewish people and their ties to Israel have over the United States. A very pro-Israeli American was one of Donald Trump's biggest backers. And he just came out and talked about how they're always asking for things basically for Israel and not for America. I'm not being anti-Semitic. I'm just giving you the reality. And you as a voter know this over and over again, because politicians don't do what you want. They absolutely do not. And so America goes to MAGA. MAGA comes along, and it's a very new thing. It's like, no, actually, we're going to give you what you want as voters. And voters are like, oh, that's great. I want that. And now they're watching it. And I will say that Trump's doing okay. His approval's like -8 points right now. That's the lowest of his term. But overwhelmingly, people are saying, well, we want more out of the domestic policy agenda. Stop spending time overseas. And all of a sudden, the right direction polling is now under 40%. And why does it happen? Is the government is shut down while Trump is overseas with other countries. So now, when you look at the future of the conservative movement, you have a whole lot of establishment Republicans who, quite frankly, the Republican Party is still the party of big business and the establishment. You know this because right after the big, beautiful bill got signed, they were immediately going behind closed doors to try and get stealth amnesty. They want more immigrants. They want amnesty. They want these things that are not helping the middle class that's been hollowed out by decades of globalism and uniparty control. So now, looking ahead at Trump, he's going to lose political capital. Everybody knows this. MAGA is going to mean something new. The Republican Party is going to have to pick a new direction. Now, J.D. Vance comes out last week, and at the Turning Point USA speech, just after Tucker Carlson, laid out a very good set of answers to how to respond to people who want America first. And it's especially the Gen Z folks, people under 40 really, who are really upset with the system, think it's failed them, think their future has been stolen from them, and want radical change out of the government and aren't seeing enough of it from Republicans. So these are people Republicans need to win. And it's the reason that the young people are being pushed into the arms of people like Mamdani, because the Republican Party without Trump is irrelevant. And now it has to decide a path forward. So J.D. Vance comes out there and fires what I think is probably the opening salvo of the run for 2028. And he had some questions there that were like, no, we shouldn't always do everything that's in the interest of Israel first. He came out and gave answers like that. No, we shouldn't shy away from Christianity. And I'm trying to convert my wife. Like, those are things, yes, we need to get rid of, we need to take in way fewer legal immigrants. That we can, it's okay to look at your neighbors and want to share something in common with them. These are things that are nails on the chalkboard to Washington, D.C. Republicans. And so I think that a lot of this is the subtext to what is going on in Washington, D.C. right now, which is, I think, the Republican Civil War. And I thought it was going to be about big business not wanting economic populism and trying to undermine J.D. Vance because he's an economic populist. And the polling says that that's what Americans want. They want economic populism. They don't want traditional Republicans. And what do you see now? Like, actually, no, the Civil War was started and the first shots in the Republican Party were fired over Israel. And so here we are on Twitter now with just the most ridiculous arguments. Oh, but Nick Fuentes said this once. And it's like, well, I don't care, but you're not really addressing why all these people are following him and agreeing with most of the things he says. And it's like, yeah, okay, maybe he was undermining Trump. Well, it's like, okay, you have to have the nuance to know that not everybody that clicked the like and subscribe button on him is actually a groyper that follows everything that he says.
So your position, though, is that if we put him, if Nick Fuentes is put into the basement and is not allowed to be seen, then the darkest of those who might be influenced into some of the dark positions, and it also might send him into a darker spiral as he tries to grab onto people to maintain his influence. You're saying that the Barbara Streisand effect is in effect, as it always has been, and so you have to put these ideas out into the sunlight. That's your position, is give the daylight its chance to act upon it. Okay, so I understand that, and I'm with you on platforming. I want to come back, though, to the Mamdani thing. Real quick, though, I do want to say this. So when it comes to the question on Israel, part of the problem is that nuance is lost in a hurricane. Right. And so we've got this massive eruption of different opinions on this, and some of them are extreme on both sides, and some of them, most of them probably are somewhere in the middle, as I think you're espousing. And so I would just suggest that even the term Israel means to wrestle with God, or he who wrestles with God. And one of the amazing things about the Torah or the Old Testament, depending on if you're Jewish or Christian or how you want to term it, is that throughout the Old Testament or the Torah, you see that the patriarchs and the heroes of both Christianity and Judaism, whether it's Abraham or Isaac, or when you look at all of those characters in the Bible, no other religion that I can think of other than this Judeo-Christian combination that's found there, no other faith that I can recall shows their faith heroes in such a negative light sometimes. And it's actually very realistic, right? So Abraham is this person who comes into covenant with God, and through his offspring and through his children, all the world will be blessed. Got it. But he's also the guy who offers to give up his wife and have her treated in horrible ways so that he might survive at one point. And so you've got, King David, for example. King David is this guy who is heralded as someone who's after God's own heart, and yet he sleeps with another woman, and that's not enough. He also has her husband killed. So the idea that we can't criticize people of any group, whether it's Jewish or Gentile or Arabic, the idea that you wouldn't be able to criticize the state of Israel, I think that's a very bad idea. And the idea that we can't debate about how much money should go to Israel and how much America should be aligned, all of that, I think, is free territory to get into the nuances there. I think it's a very difficult thing to talk about right now, and I do think that there are people on both sides who are either so pro in that area or so against in that area that it's difficult to listen to them, and then they just hammer whoever's in the middle. Is that fair, you think?
Yeah, I mean, it's a mess out there, and the problem is that the very influential people are, in my opinion, misframing this. And it's like, no, you probably shouldn't use this as a call to cancel the head of the Heritage Foundation. Like, that's probably overreach, and we all kind of know it. And it's like, yeah, there's been issues with Tucker in the past, but it's like you're kind of making it transparent that this is an effort to literally try to make him toxic, to diminish his voice. And I mean, I think I would just anecdotally say that the freak out about Tucker interviewing Nick Fuentes was bigger, in my opinion, than the freak out over Tucker interviewing Vladimir Putin. And so, like, really, again, this is a kid that's saying things in America with a right to free speech. Obviously, a lot of it's anti-Semitic, but people are pretending that this is like new. And it's like, no, you have to acknowledge that, like, young, angry men have been the core of Trump's support all the way going back to like 2015. It came from 4chan. It went on to Reddit. And they often say really stupid and edgy things. Like, it was only a month ago when J.D. Vance came out and refused to condemn these young Republicans who were saying the same kind of things in a group chat. And nobody's really freaking out over that anymore, but they're all really going balls to the wall against Tucker. And so, in my opinion, that shows you, I think, that there's something bigger politically going on. And then if you look at the arguments too, it's like, okay, yes, in my replies, first off, I'm not an anti-Semite, and I've been called an anti-Semite more now than I ever have. And it's,
but we have to be vociferous on that, Mark. We have to be vociferous because we have to be very clear, I think. We have to be very clear that when there are criticisms of the state of Israel, right, and you can have those fairly, you also, one of the problems is that those who support Israel and those who are of the Jewish faith, those who are ethnically Jewish, they're looking at what's happened with Hamas, right? And they see a categorical difference in who they are versus who that is. And they recognize, and rightfully so, that there's a darkness out there that would eradicate them at any chance. And so we have to be forthrightly proactive in saying, we recognize that whatever that is that wants to wipe you off the face of the earth, that we can't allow that to metastasize in any way. And I do think that exists. I do think that, and because we've come out of the Holocaust too, remember, I mean, we're now at that point where most of the people who experienced that have passed away. But we don't want history to repeat itself there either. And at the same time, Mark, I'm watching this video that comes out of, I guess, Nigeria, of the woman with her kids, you know, and she's tormented before they destroy them. And I see this little 6-year-old boy there who's, you know, trying to be like a man and protect his mommy with his hand on it, and it like crushes my heart. You know, I don't want suffering anywhere with anybody, and I want to try to stop that. And I feel like when the sad part to me about all this, and you tell me what you think about it, and then we'll wrap this part of the conversation up. But I'd love to have you back again to talk more about it. The sad thing to me is that the new media did a wonderful job of bringing in the anecdote to what we were witnessing, which was, you know, when Biden was up there with the red lights behind him and talking about, you know, just horrible things about the political opposition, you know, and we were watching as people could not even say what they believed online. This was a very negative future that we have seen across Europe. And luckily that was defeated. But I don't think people understand that this coalition that has been in the new media, that if it fractures too badly, you know, Mamdani taking over New York, this is something that is, you know, this is going to sweep across America if we're not careful. And so we've got to hold it together. And maybe this is what Charlie Kirk was about. We've got to hold this coalition together because there is real evil out there. I'm not saying Mamdani himself is evil necessarily, but that which we're seeing across Europe that I don't want to come to America, I'm very worried about that.
Yeah. So agree 100%. But then I would also say it's like, well, you have to understand that like speech is a pressure relief valve, right?
Yes.
And so if your goal is to plug that pressure relief valve up, it's probably not the right way to go about making sure that those things don't repeat. Because again, I don't think most of the, this is just conjecture. I don't think most of the Groypers really want another Holocaust. I think what they're really saying is pay attention to me because you've been ignoring my concerns. And they, in that way, I think are very, very right. I think society hasn't really cared a lot about young men at all, and they're angry. And that's a problem because I think we're probably going to have some economic hardship coming. I think the unemployment rate's going to go up a lot. And if these people are politically homeless, like they are politically homeless. A lot of them are independent. They're not really committed to conservatism or free market ideals. And I think they voted for Trump in order to burn the system down. And they're mad that the system is not burning down fast enough. But as for Israel, I can say it's like, Their own public relations, their own bad public relations, in my opinion, caused this. And yes, obviously, some of it was Al Jazeera, some of it is Qatar. But we're talking about the week after October 7th in 2023. In our tracking question, looking at the history of Israel and Palestine, do you sympathize more with Israelis or Palestinians? And 59% of people said Israel. I think only like 18 said Palestinians. Now it's down to 41% who say Israel, 28% say Palestinians. And
I think, Mark, my assessment of that is that one side did a much better job of capturing the empathy of the youth through videos and through social media.
Yeah, that partly explains it. I think also a lack of restraint and proportionality. And you know what I mean? Like, I'm trying to be as honest about both sides here. But the age signal is really, really bad. Obviously, Republicans support Israel more, but it's only 56-20 now. It's dropped quite a lot. And do you think that's why we've reached the point of the ceasefires? Because in most conflicts, you go until the public support diminishes, and then that's what ultimately ends a lot of conflict. Maybe Trump was like, yo, I'm getting killed here on domestic policy. You got to stop. There's too much. Like, pump the brakes. That could be happening too. I really don't know. But the age signal is really turned south for them now. Only 21% of 18 to 29 say Israel, 44% say Palestinians. And it was way different situation 2 years ago. Now,
I love, just real quick, I love, I love Christians, I love Jews, I love people of all varieties out there. I have friends on both sides. I don't want suffering or pain. I want goodness, righteousness to win. These are very complex issues. But Mark, what I hope people will take away is that there is a force out there that really should be uniting us down the road. And while there are these differences, we've got to pay attention to just how severely the left has gone. And that's why the new media was able to conquer and defeat. But, when you look, and the polling, that's what I wanted to bring up. What about on the other side? So while the new media is kind of fracturing and the right is trying to figure out what the heck it's going to be and what are the principles on platforming and deplatforming and signal boosting and, should you be tough, should you not be tough, et cetera, et cetera. What is it like on the left right now? Where have they gone? Because it seems to me that, AOC is the most likely leader of the Democrat Party now.
Yeah, or Newsom or Mamdani, I guess. They'll probably run that guy for president.
Newsom burned down an area of his city, of his big, Los Angeles, the size of the city of Paris, and he's still going to run for president. It's like, how incompetent do you have to be?
Yeah. So looking politically at the future, I would say first, there are a lot of unpredictable black swans that could happen. One of which is the fact that right now, as we speak, Dominion voting equipment has been purchased and is being dismantled and tested and recertified.
And that was purchased by a conservative individual, right?
Yeah, there's wild cards out there. That's one of them. Also, arrests is the other wild card. That's one of the things that everybody was hoping we'd see more out of the Trump administration. And, I think we're also kind of waging a proxy war against China now and Venezuela that might be related to elections too. So there's obviously wild cards. And I'm not saying that AOC or Gavin Newsom are going to be super great contenders on a national political stage. And I think that JD Vance, knowing what I know now, JD Vance probably wins 2028. And we could.
Is there a second, Mark? Is there anybody that's running that has who has the next best chance, if not JD?
Well, it's hard. The reason it's hard to know because it's hard to know how much power Trump's endorsement will lose between now and 2028. JD is blowing everybody else out of the water in Republican primary polls. It was 53-11 over Rubio and 10 over DeSantis, and everybody else is single digits. Doesn't mean somebody can't come out of any nowhere. It doesn't mean that Trump can't endorse somebody and everybody will have to get behind that person. But Trump also endorsed Lindsey Graham. And again, I think he's going to be losing political capital as people look to the future. And again, I think that JD Vance in many ways did a better job outlining what America First looks like last week than Trump has on some occasions. So they could win nationally. I think that's still potentially the case. But then when you just look generally at politics, we did a whole lot of polling on Zoomers, and everybody says they're like super conservative, and it's just really not the case at all. They voted for Trump more than people expected them to, and I'll expand it to people under 40. But we have polling now that isn't released that'll be very elucidating, and we did some back in September. And these people overwhelmingly support nationalizing major industries, even the ones that voted for Trump. 3/4 of Trump voters support nationalizing bigger industries to give control and equity to the people. That's not very conservative. 56% of Trump voters under 40 support excess wealth confiscation. That's not very conservative. And so what I've been framing is the era of granddaddy Republican traditional conservative party is done. I'm telling you, neoconservatism as a predicate to like a military backstop of Israel is going to die out in the next. Israel's down to 41%. The 65 and olders are 56% Israel, 23 Palestine. When 10 more years of those people die, more people will support Palestinians than Israelis in this country. And yet the Republican Party is still relatively unified on 100% Israel support. Remember what happened back in August when they had a recess, 20 lawmakers went over there and did this little powwow when they, instead of doing town halls, when everybody thinks that the system is falling apart, right? And so if the Republican Party can't figure out a way to authentically become America first in a way that means dismantling the economic system to make up for the fact that, quite frankly, Republican globalism is what gave us the stagnating wage crisis. Obviously, illegal immigration over the last 4 years in the Biden administration, but everybody likes to pretend that we're in this economic situation because of Democrats. We're in this economic situation because this idea of like trickle down, unfettered free market capitalism and globalism would somehow benefit Americans, even though we're shipping all the jobs overseas. Like, it has not worked out. Not only that, now all the companies are woke because of this big global interconnected financial World Economic Forum system that we have going. And so the Republicans really screwed up. They have a lot to apologize for. And no, they're down there calling themselves Christian Zionists and printing signs that say like Tucker Carlson is not MAGA. Like, Ted Cruz, you're going to lose that fight. Like, you're not going to be able to co-opt MAGA in order to turn it into a pro-Israeli party when people can't put food on their table because of your 20 years of wage stagnation. And so if the right can't figure out in the next 3 years how to fix this, and right now it looks like they're going to fight J.D. Vance in order to keep it from happening, then people under 40 are just going to vote for Zoran Mamdani. They're going to vote for Democrat socialism. Even like Trump 2024 voters were like 43 to 44 on whether they would vote for a Democrat socialist. So that's the future of politics. And it's like, okay, well, maybe Gavin Newsom's not good, but at some point it's going to be the majority of people in the country. They're going to take over Congress. It's going to be a complete freaking mess because capitalism has failed and nobody's trying to fix it.
So if I understand you correctly, and we're looking at how the new media is going to carry this message forward, what I'm hearing is that you're not positing, an anti-Jewish kind of position, but that the young voters, especially in your assessment, seem to be unmoored to the kinds of principles that are being ascribed to them, and that if we don't get this right in terms of the Israeli policy and in terms of how do you handle at least the PR front of that, everybody's going to lose in this. Not only will the conservatives lose, but those who want Israel to do well will lose, because all of this will fall apart as we then lose the messaging to a young generation that right now is maybe like bipolar in the way it views the world. It will vote for Trump, but it will vote for Mamdani in a second, and it just seems to be angry and without principle.
Yeah, 100%. I think a neoconservative Republican Party is an existential need for Israel. And I think an America First Republican Party is an existential need for the future of America. And I think those two are very much in conflict right now, as we're seeing playing out on Twitter, which is basically where everybody goes with their torches and pitchforks now. But it's like, okay, well, now that all the young people are very much tuned into social media and are weighing these ideas, inauthentic things like, jingoism, we got to go bomb people, like that's not going to work. I think bad logic's not going to work either. And I think like bullying tactics, because America's been through COVID. They've seen what happens when people get silenced and shut down. And I just don't think it's going to work. So patently obvious. And I think it's causing more damage than good. And that's even worse because that means everybody's going to be even more desperate to try and get their will. But yeah, like we don't really have much of a future. Like obviously the music has been playing for a very long time and it will stop eventually. And I don't know when that is. It could obviously be accelerated by total global war with China or whatever, but our currency situation's not great. Like our debt picture is absolutely horrible. Probably going to, what do we have? $2 trillion deficit, probably like 1.2 trillion in debt. Like what happens when there's a bond vigilante puke?
That's why, Mark, I think Elon Musk is doing what he's doing, which is racing, trying to win this AI war. Is I think he believes that's the only way that we can outpace the debt issues in America and keep America in front of China is if AI explodes the GDP and increases economic output by orders of magnitude. We've spent ourselves into a corner where we have to have AI now, to come on board and be sort of an exponentially increasing workforce in place of humanity. It's a wild time to be alive. Mark, we've had this has been a deep conversation. You and I agree on some things, we disagree on others, but I think we're on the same page in terms of we know what is out there that is coming for us if we don't get this resolved, and the resolution has to come through hard conversations and deep thought with people that we might disagree with to some degree, and then we've got to build this thing up in terms of the coalition of people who believe honestly in truth, because it's a truth versus anti-truth world out there, and we're going to have to wade our way through it. I'll give you a chance to give the final thoughts on this one. Longer than usual, but I have enjoyed the conversation thoroughly. Your thoughts, Mark?
Just that Elon thing, though. The problem is there's so many immovable forces meeting unstoppable, whatever that trope is, because I think the best thing in the near term for Zoomers is rapid deflation and a shrinking of the GDP through complete reversal of our highly abused temporary work visa programs, as I think that people are starting to realize, and as I think that JD Vance came out and said. That's also really bad for the dollar. It's really bad for basically anybody with a large corporation like Elon Musk who needs all that cheap labor. But it will increase wages very rapidly and solve the problem. The problem is wages. People might say it's prices. It's absolutely 100% that our job market was given to the rest of the world by Republicans, and they need to fix that really quick. And yeah, this is a great conversation, and we went everywhere. But if I could leave people with one thing, is that you don't have to agree with everything that somebody says. That's not a requirement. And so if you say, oh, Nick Fuentes had a good point, and somebody said, well, oh, look what he said a month ago, you're not responsible for responding to that because that person didn't address the value of the argument that was made. And just that very, very, very basic fact alone, out of a list of 20 things probably, is being manipulated very highly on Twitter. So it's get out there in the trenches and fight the info war and try and hold people accountable to Western values of logos, obviously our Judeo-Christian morals. There should not be lies, gaslighting, logical fallacies out there, because this is a very big topic. It decides essentially, I think, the future of our country.
Well, remember what happened on the left. The left tried to silence the right, and as a result, they created all this pressure, and it didn't work. It never does. And so I would say that when people encounter ideas and opinions that they find repulsive, the answer is not to try to censor that into oblivion. Maybe there are some atrocious ideas that you'd love to do that with. Doesn't work. You have to engage with it, and you have to defeat it in the marketplace of ideas. And we've got a young generation that we have to save, if your polling is correct, Mark, because they don't have any idea what they believe in if they can go from Trump to Mamdani, Mamdani to Trump. And so we've got to get the ideas flowing again, folks. All right, ladies and gentlemen, that is the video for this afternoon. Happy that you joined us. We've got more on the way, including a pro show this evening. Hope to see you there. Get over and subscribe to Rasmussen Reports here on YouTube. Mark Mitchell is there to help you know what's going on in terms of the movements across America and beyond. Folks, until the next time, we have the honor, the pleasure, and the joy of spending time with you. Keep learning, keep growing, and as always, keep having fun.
This is wonderful. No interruptions, just relax radio on Prelude Pro Radio. I'm so happy WDW Pro and his pals are making this kind of stuff on YouTube. Now I can just sit back, relax, Enjoy.
Mr. Floral? Mr. Floral, sir?
Yeah, Coco?
Well, I just noticed that you're doing a WDW Pro bumper ad on the end of the video.
Yeah, I'm just listening to Relax Radio, the new YouTube live stream for all the best instrumentals to study, relax, or even go to sleep to.
But don't you think you're missing something?
No.
Aren't you,
I don't know what.
Aren't these ads usually featuring Wilton?
Nope, not this one, Coco. Relax Radio is all about taking it easy. Wilton is just the opposite. With Relax Radio, everything's about calm and relaxing. You just click on the live stream over at Prelude Pro Radio and let your cares melt away.
Okay, so then I shouldn't tell you that Wilton is currently stuffing aluminum foil in the one kitchen appliance you really should never do that with.
Wow. I gotta say, cooking these days is far more exciting than I remember. That goldfish, though, never want to see that again. Whoa. Well,